Developing news, a Ponzi scheme fronted through a Springfield business has been uncovered by state officials, with a Lexington woman accused of defrauding dozens of people, many in Western Mass. Now, according to the state, Barbara Hirschfield has been selling investment notes through Ideal Financial Holdings, which was posing as the former family business it started as in 1948. Despite state orders to stop operating and soliciting, authorities say Ideal continued selling to new investors to pay off existing ones with no real revenue coming in. Since at least 2019 through April this year, the state alleges Ideal collected more than $7.6 million from at least 180 investors. Around $7.2 million was used to pay interest or repay principal to other investors. Now, the state says a large portion of impacted investors live in the Springfield area, with many related to one another and some possibly being descendants from those who invested in Ideal in its early years. The complaint filed by the state discussed the broader ramifications of this Ponzi scheme, saying, quote, Hirschfield's actions have devastated the friends and families she and Ideal preyed upon for decades, robbing one investor to pay another until new investors stopped appearing. The state is now ordering Hirschfield and Ideal repay all investors with interest. The complaint will be presented in front of a hearing officer in an administrative forum.